Hello, and welcome to the third and final webinar of the Central Virginia Regional Housing Partnership's Winter Spring Speaker Series. If you've had the chance to join us for our last two webinars on upzoning and affordable housing and the Virginia Zoning Atlas, we are very excited to have you back. If not, the recordings of those webinars are posted on the CVRHP's webpage and will go out in our follow-up email to today's presentation. We appreciate you all spending this lunch break with us, and we're very excited to round out this series with today's speakers. We have three speakers today to discuss their development philosophies as well as their work on responding to the RFP for UVA's Wheatland and 10th Street site. Brief introduction to those individuals. We have Meena Jacob, Vice President for Real Estate Development with Preservation of Affordable Housing. We have John Settles, the Director of Development at Wycliffe Development and Consulting. And we have JT Engelhardt, the Director of Real Estate with National Housing Trust. So one final housekeeping item, we will have time for questions at the very end of their presentation. So please put any questions that you may have into the Q&A section, and we will be sure to get that to them. With that, I will turn it over to today's speakers.
Good afternoon, everyone. So happy to be with you and for the opportunity for our team to be able to present ourselves and the project. How we have come together as a team is responding to an RFP through the University of Virginia, and we were the selected developers for the Wheatland and 10th Street project. Before we go into a little bit more introduction about ourselves and our respective organizations, I think it's important to say, as I mentioned, we responded to an RFP, but from the University of Virginia, that really goes back to, I think, President Ryan's brainchild of making the university great and good, and his charge as, making the university a great and good university. And in order to be a great university, you need to be a good neighbor. And so that's how this, their affordable housing initiative came about, because they started to reach out and they went through an extensive process with outreach to the community, reaching out, asking what their main concerns were, what their hot points were, and developed a series of affordable housing principles. And out of that, a result was these RFPs, which we came together as a team and responded to. And as you learn about our organizations, you'll sort of understand why this RFP spoke to us. So as Davey mentioned, I'm Meena Jacob. I'm a Vice President of Real Estate Development at Preservation of Affordable Housing. We're an organization based in Boston, but we are a national nonprofit with offices in DC and Chicago, but we do projects pretty much all along the East Coast and Midwest. Our organization is really focused on that, which is preserving affordable housing. We started almost 25 years ago, really in acquisition of housing developments, existing housing developments, whose affordability the affordability term was coming to an end, and residents would be displaced, so because they would be flipped to market. So we came in and we acquired the properties through complex transaction and reset the affordability term so that people would not be displaced, and again, preserving affordable housing. So I will hand that to my partner, JT Engelhardt from NHT, and he can talk about his organization.
Hi, I'm JT Engelhardt with National Housing Trust. We also are a nonprofit organization founded in 1986 that we were initially founded by some former HUD executives that recognized that the earliest affordable housing developments developed in the 30s, 40s, 50s were reaching the end of their compliance period, and without intervention or incentive, were just at risk of going to market, which nobody really ever considered when they're being built, and significant displacement. So from 1986 until about the late 90s, we were really an advocacy group that advocated for creating programs to keep buildings in the affordable, deed restricted affordable portfolio. We started to branch out into other areas. Now we're an organization that has a real estate development arm, a CDFI lending arm. We have an advocacy, that's our origin, and we have a sustainability business line and a community outreach and impact business line that provides services to properties that we own. We own about 4,000 units, and we've evolved over time, but we're really at our heart, much like preservation of affordable housing, we are a housing preservation organization, and we see this 10th and Whartland development as in that arena because there's a significant rental pressure. And so developing in the middle of Charlottesville, affordable housing in the middle of Charlottesville, really preserves affordable housing for residents that live there. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. I am excited to be here and happy to be a part of the team. My name is John Settles, and I am head of development for WDC Development and Consulting. We are a Northern Virginia-based minority, 100% minority-owned SWAM enterprise. We provide not only development, but development consulting and also technical assistance, primarily to housing authorities and nonprofits. We, obviously we're excited to be a part of this team because one of the key emphasis of projects we work on are really creating catalytic and transformational projects. So when we found out about the RFP, I read not only the Affordable Housing Working Group, but all the other working group reports, and really just saw the opportunity to participate and join and be a part of a dynamic mixed-use project that not only provides needed affordable housing, but community-centric, community-based offerings within the commercial spaces that would serve the immediate community and broader needs that we have found to be identified in the city. So looking forward to a wonderful conversation today. Meena, I'll kick it back to you.
Sure. Thank you, John. Davey, do you want to move the slide? So just for context, for those who are not familiar with the location, this is the Whartland and 10th Street site. It is right abutting downtown, essentially downtown, and the 10th and Page neighborhood. So it runs parallel to Main Street, right in downtown Charlottesville. And I think through, as I mentioned, the UVA working group and through this project we've developed a concept and our program, which provides broad affordability. 100% of the units are affordable through a range of AMIs. Area median incomes, and it's community centric and it addresses community needs. We have a pretty robust community engagement program that we are employing on this. We have developed a program that creates economic opportunity specifically for marginalized populations. It elevates affordable housing design. Just because a project is affordable doesn't mean that it has to be ugly or low bar for design. It can be designed just as a market rate building, and it follows the UVA design principles that were created through their robust process. I think the other thing to note is this is really designed with keeping residents of Charlottesville in mind, and in a way it's a way to allow people to stay within the community rather than having to move out into the county. So I'm going to hand it off to John so he can speak more to the community piece of it.
Thanks, Meena. So as I briefly mentioned, as we were designing the RFP and reading through the various working group reports and conversations that I had with individuals from the community, from the business community, the university and others, we really identified kind of what we call gaps or needs in the community. And so we have tried to put together a program where the commercial space, the mixed use spaces in the building will be offered at substantially below market rents. So these will be designed to address some of the major issues for small organizations or small businesses, the cost of rent, proximity to community, while also addressing needs. So one of the things that came out and actually in the early childhood education working group report, some of the other reports, is just the chronic lack of early childhood seats in the city, especially those in conversations with United Way and others, at the low price end of the spectrum. There's just a huge need. We also early on found out that there was a overflow and a lack of available space in the two centers on campus. So we felt that having an early childhood center would fit not only a need, but also would provide business incubation and economic opportunity. And so this is something that's really near and dear to me because I chair a nonprofit in DC called Southeast Children's Fund, where we have not only an early childhood education center, but we also provide certification training for early childhood educators. And it's been so successful that this past year, DC started requiring anyone that works in an early childhood center in the city to have the certification. And so we've also kind of envisioned a business incubation where small operators or individuals that ultimately like to own a center could get training and incubation there to be able to open up other spaces, because we know one space is not going to solve the need. The other thing that is a key anchor, New Hill is going to be a partner on this and a tenant. So New Hill will have space to provide financial literacy, business training, business economic training, financial literacy training, credit counseling, those kind of things for individuals and businesses, which is a great tie-in with the POA Resource Center. So the Resource Center is really going to be a community-based space that will have programming in conjunction with community partners, but also will be open to community organizations to be able to use the space. So for instance, we've talked with the 10th and Page community about being able to hold their meetings there. We've talked with other organizations about having after-school events or health-related events. So the Resource Center will really just be a place where individuals from the apartments upstairs, the community right there, and the broader community can come and take a benefit of those resources. And then the corner space, which we've initially outlined as a community grocery store, which is kind of an ode to the store that was there on the corner for years. But all of this, especially the grocery store, is really going to be driven by the community. Because one thing we've said to the community is it needs to be something that you want, something that you will support, and something that's sustainable, because we don't want to, even though we're not going to run these spaces, we don't want to put people in situations where they don't have long-term viability, because we want this project to be extremely viable. So that's kind of a high-level overview of what we're thinking, but all these will be finalized as we continue our dialogue with the community and other stakeholders. Next slide, please. Community engagement is a really critical part of all of our work, but it's really critical in this because, we did a lot of listening, both during the RFP and after award. And so we've heard the tension with development. We've read the stories, about the dairy market situation. We've, had individual and group conversations. So we have committed and, from day one have really been focused on, a robust, meaningful community engagement strategy. So one of the first things that we have done is we've convened a group of what we call community ambassadors. And these are individuals, from the community, the immediate community, that are leaders or stakeholders in the community that are really helping us drive our process down to making decisions like, where do we hold meetings? What time do we have them? What kind of food do we serve? What are the activities there? And how do we enhance the number of people of intent that attend, so we don't have the traditional meeting where it's just the 20 hardcore people that always come. We want to make sure that we're expanding the outreach and everybody's getting opportunity to participate. We're really focused on also educating the community ambassadors in the community, because one thing I found in doing this over the years is people don't understand development. We have a lot of acronyms. We have a lot of, different programs and things. And so people can't really contribute if they fully don't understand. So we make sure that we're educating them, on the process, on how decision-making is made so that they can contribute in a meaningful way. We're really focused on multifaceted outreach strategies. We know that Now we're in this high-tech environment, but there's seniors that are not on social media or, are not able to go to the website. So we need to make sure the information is getting to them. We have contracted with Lorenzo Dickinson, who's a local filmmaker, that we're going to document kind of the history of the neighborhood, the history of what's going on in the community, and the history of this project, so that down the road, people can see kind of what was the plan, what was promised, what was delivered, so it can be chronicled through the whole process. And then the last piece is really creating a long-term asset. And what we mean here is not an asset for us, but a long-term asset for the community, something that can be a benefit to the community. Next slide, please. JT, this is your slide.
Yes. National Housing Trust and me in particular have been co-owners and partners with Piedmont Housing Alliance on the Friendship Court, now Kindlewood redevelopment, which is really going in earnest. We just finished phase 1, 106 new units, and opened it up. And so one of my tasks in our overall venture with POA and WDC is to lead the entitlement and lead the site plan process. And so this slide really focuses on what's in front of us. We are deeply working on this right now to make sure that the design that we're trying to accomplish, which is really to maximize affordability on this 2-acre parcel in context with the neighborhood, and in not only in context with the neighborhood, but in partnership with the neighborhood, with a lot of the work we've been doing that's been led by John. But really, functionally speaking, we are trying to ensure that our proposed development, we have to consolidate 2 lots. One is owned by the University of Virginia. One is owned by the University of Virginia Foundation. They have to be combined. Generally speaking, what we're trying to develop, what we're proposing to develop, is compliant with the new zoning. And it also coincidentally was generally compliant with the previous zoning. But there's a lot of fine details that we're working out, and trying to be, partners with the city. And, part of the zoning process, and we've been watching it closely, is that the city also wants to develop affordable housing and be a partner in that as well. So we're in the beginning stages of that. What we're really trying to do is get a site plan approval prior to March 2025, so that we can submit a application for the key component of subsidy funding, the low-income housing tax credit, in March. Every March there's one application, so we want to take a shot in March 2025, and this is a whole new process. So the city's learning as we're learning, or the city's developing their rules and procedures as we're learning, and it's aggressive. We know, and we've been advised that it's aggressive to try to get this site plan approved in a year, but we're trying, and we're in the beginning stages of it. Next slide. Meena, I think, were you going to go over the timeline?
I think you were, but that
It speaks for itself. Really, it's a lot of effort to get to a tax credit application, and then that really is it's a competitive process. It's like a baseball batting average success rate. We're confident we're going to give it our best shot, but we have to acknowledge that sometimes you don't win the first time, sometimes you don't win the second time. That's not our goal. But when we get the tax credits, we have the key and foundational component of our funding necessary to build this thing. We need a whole lot of additional sources from the state, from various non-traditional sources. We're going to look under every rock. But if we succeed in the March 2025 tax credit application, we can ideally close on construction financing and begin construction. This says Q3, Q4 2025. I'd say probably Q1, Q2 2026. We begin construction, and it all hinges on the success of the March 2025 tax credit application, which we'll find out in June, in late June, early July. If we fail and we go the following year, then everything slides by a year. Next slide. Meena?
Yep. So I think we want to just wrap this up so we can leave enough time for questions from folks. But this is just a high level summary of what we've spoke about. Again, 100% affordability with residential and commercial spaces. We want the project to be community serving with commercial offerings. It's going to provide workforce development and training opportunities. And really at the crux of it, it's a high quality, sustainable residential building with amenities for the residents that will be there for the long term. And with that, thank you for your time. We're happy to take questions.
All right, Meena, we have our first question has come in, so I will be delivering that to you guys. So is it related to the commercial space? What is the subsidy estimated to be for the commercial space, and what amount of commercial space is currently planned for this site?
John, I can hand that to you to answer.
Okay. So right now we have just over 10,000 square feet split among 4 spaces. And what the plan is, and obviously we're in the early stages, we haven't even got construction numbers, so we have not finalized our pro forma, but they will substantially be discounted. So probably at a minimum, a 75% discount on market rate rents, maybe even a little bit more, which we'll finalize once we get that pro forma. But it'll be a substantial discount that should allow businesses to be able to, pay a little bit more salary, do a little bit more marketing, and obviously be able to be sustainable from a rent perspective.
Thank you for that, John. Next question, when you say preserving affordability, do you have a length of terms in the deed restrictions and percent of AMI?
Sure, I can take that, but I would welcome my colleagues to jump in if I don't give enough information. As JT mentioned, both of our organizations are about preserving affordable housing. And John, although Wycliffe is a private firm, they still have the same vision of community and housing. So really what we intend to do is to set the project up for long-term affordability. So usually we have through some of our soft funding and subsidy sources, there's usually a long-term affordability plan. So sometimes it's 40 years, sometimes it's 30 years, sometimes it's in perpetuity. But in terms of tax credit, usually that period is 15 years. And then, 15 years goes by quick, but our intention is always to re-syndicate, reset the affordability terms, and keep the project affordable for the long term.
Yeah, I'll just add that there's an extended use agreement that's required from Virginia Housing when we get the tax credits. Additionally, most other funding sources require long-term affordability. Frankly, Luis, the answer is forever. That's our intent. The longer, the better. It's in our founding DNA, and it's a tragedy. And we work really hard in many different ways as an organization to prevent any existing property that serves that has long-term deed restricted affordability from leaving the program. And we're working on all kinds of fronts on that. But I don't have it memorized because forever is how I always view it. But I think it's 30 plus 40 or 30 plus an additional 40 that is required or essentially required in order to have a competitive application. The additional fact on the 10th and Wortland site is that we will be entering into a long-term ground lease with the University of Virginia Foundation. They will own the land, and we will own the building. And I believe the intent is an 80-year lease. So that's the longest number of the numbers I've cited. So let's say 80, but really forever, or as long as I'm alive, or NHT and POA are alive, and we're big, long-term, around for a long time organizations.
Thank you both. Would you mind giving us a little bit of insight into what your team's strategy was for braiding that funding that you mentioned, and how you organized the process and built out this partnership to be able to get the proposal done?
JT, I'll toss that to you.
Well, yeah, that's a lot. So let me start by saying, how did we, get together to respond to the RFP? How did we team up? We all were aware of the UVA Foundation RFQ at the time, and then it later got shortlisted, and then there was an RFP through different ways. I've been working on Kindlewood in Charlottesville for a long time, and POA, Meena's the head of development, Meena's boss, Roger Brown, either provided formal or informal advice at the early stages of this affordable housing initiative some time ago, so he was made aware of it. POA is a really well-regarded organization, and so we connected because I believe POA has, or I know that POA, or we know that POA has very good experience working with colleges and universities to develop excess land and other large landholding institutions in cities like Chicago and Boston that are very similar to the goals of the UVA Foundation RFQ. So I think I'd like to toss it to John to talk about how John got involved and WDC got involved.
Yep. So thanks, JT. Obviously, as JT alluded to, we all have a real deep commitment to affordable housing. So previously, Kevin White, who is in charge of development in NHT, we had attempted to partner on 2 previous deals and ended up deciding that it didn't make sense to pursue them for various reasons, but maintain a relationship, as well as I've maintained a relationship with the financing arm of NHT, because NHT, if you don't know, is a very well regarded nonprofit with multiple lines of operation that are really on the front cutting edge. So their policy shop, for instance, I always go to them looking for the latest information on HUD programs and policies. So in one of those conversations, the RFP came up, the conversation came up, and we were just ecstatic to be able to be a part of the team. So, and we felt it was a good team. We bring together kind of, overlapping strengths, like, in a Venn diagram, but we also fill gaps where others don't. So we felt that the alignment was perfect, and obviously we're thrilled to be successful with this.
And I'll add that the UVA Foundation RFQ and RFP had very specific goals about affordable housing, about the about really trying to be intentional and not just check boxes or meet funding requirements, to really do our best to have the significant dollars that are going to be spent to develop this property benefit the local community as much as possible. So we spoke to that and really tried to develop relationships to help meet those goals, and it's a work in progress. And also to involve a minority business in the ownership, and that is a goal of ours. It's a goal of the RFP. It's great to bring in WDC and John, and that's really to address something that's persistent in the real estate industry in general, and even in the affordable housing real estate industry, which is it's just a lack of ownership and opportunity by minority-owned businesses. And so that is another component of what drew us together initially. So you want to also, you asked a question about the braiding of the funding.
Yes.
I'll simply say we know, together we know, and NHT through our recent work in the last decade or so knows the Virginia funding ecosystem pretty well. We know the Charlottesville area funding ecosystem. It's not going to be easy, but we, and none of these funds are committed yet. They're funds and funding sources that we are going to seek. There's, the funding sources at the state level that we're designing our development to make sure that it's eligible for. But there's also, this is just a significant and difficult process to find enough funds to build what we want to build. So what's in front of us is a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of seeking non-traditional sources. And we have a good team to do it, but the braiding is going to be continual.
So if I can add to that and also answer a question in the chat, which asks what portion of the capital stack is currently expected to be contributed, equity, this is a fluid and ongoing process. It always is with affordable housing, but it's even more so in this environment, because I'm sure I don't have to tell everybody on this call, they know what's going on in the marketplace with real estate in general, and a lot of the small and local banks quietly quitting on funding because of the concern with commercial office loans that are coming due. So it really, is a challenging environment, but it also, as JT said, works to the strength of the team, because both is, affordable housing developers and us as small developers, we're always looking for, you call it braiding, I call it the Hawaiian pineapple, funding. And I call it Hawaiian pineapple because just like when you're slicing a pineapple, you slice it in these little pieces. So we're always looking for little pieces of money that can come together to fill gaps, fill the equity requirements, and make things work. So while, Virginia Housing and their loan products and their other products, the LIHTC and others are going to be critical pieces of this, we're looking at a very wide net. So that's why I mentioned, things like NHT's policy shop. We're looking at some of the money that's coming, down from the sustainability funding, from the infrastructure bill and the other bills. We're looking at, potential money from commerce and EDA for the commercial spaces. So we're really casting a wide net, but we won't really be able to really pin down until we get closer, to an award, hopefully next year. And we have, really firm pro forma numbers. But I would just, reassure you, we're casting a wide net. It's something that we do every day, in every deal. And, we have real incentive to close and get it done.
I would just also add that amongst our team, we're all, to John's point, and with the environment, the budget, you have a conceptual budget and you have a strong budget, but the budget keeps moving all the way until we actually close on our financing. And between the three of us, our organizations, we're all nimble enough and have enough experience to be able to move with that and keep up in order to ensure that the project can move forward.
Thank you all. We got another question. Do you operate as a team across the country? If so, how does the environment in Virginia compare in terms of accomplishing your goals in a timely manner?
This is the first time the three of us have come together, but I don't think it's going to be the last time. But again, we all have regional experience. We have experience across the country, but we also have specific regional experience, and we're bringing all of our expertise into this project.
Right, I think that is the last of our questions. I want to thank everyone for all of those very insightful questions, and thank you to Meena and John and JT for taking the time to discuss this proposal with us and the site. We should have the recording of this presentation up on the RHP webpage soon, and you will receive that link in our follow-up email. With that, thank you for joining us. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing the Woodland and 10th Street site and all the affordable housing opportunities and commercial opportunities to the region.
Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.